Hi, I'm Maya from Bookworm Dreams and welcome to a new video. Today I'm going to talk about my March wrap-up. So I'm going to talk about all the books that I've read in the month of March. Since Christina and I read a bunch of books this month, we decided to film our wrap-ups separately because either way you were going to get two wrap-up videos. In the month of March, I read 13 books, of which 3 were science fiction, 6 were fantasy, 2 were romance books, 1 was a middle grade, and 1 was a non-fiction. So let's get started. I did participate in 2 readathons in March. I participated in the Aurelium Gear Up and I participated in Draconathon. I do have a vlog for those 2 readathons. Word just escaped me. So you can check it out. I will leave the link up there and in the description box below. Alright, so let's go to the stuff I've read. I'll go chronologically. That's the best. Alright, so the first book I read in March was Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I read this because I usually in March always check out how I'm going with my Reddit Fantasy Bingo Challenge, and I figured out that I had like only 5 or 4 books to read, and I managed to do it this month, which is great. So one of these books is Frankenstein, because I had to read a book for a gothic fantasy, and I picked that one because I found an audiobook read by the actor Jamie Bell, which I don't know if it added to my enjoyment or just basically took away from my enjoyment, because his reading was very dramatic, which made everyone very dramatic. So basically in Frankenstein, we follow Dr. Victor Frankenstein, who basically goes to London, right, to study, to go to university, and he gets very interested in, not alchemy, but basically in the natural sciences. And at one point he creates this creature. Now, when we got to that part, I was like, because that part was described in like 2 sentences, but with any kind of media adaptation of this book, it's a very dramatic scene with like thunder and lightning and the doctor screaming, "It lives!" None of that was in the book, but everything else was so dramatic. Every time Victor saw a dead body of his loved ones or anything, he basically went into like a 2-month depression and sickness, and it hit him very hard. And our monster itself was very dramatic because he was it was very traumatized by the fact that he doesn't have a family, doesn't have someone to spend his life with, and how everybody hates him because of the way he looks. And it was very dramatic, and so he went around killing everyone Victor loves, so he would make him create a partner for him to go around in life. And I mean, it's a classic, and it's really well written, and but this over dramatic stuff kind of turned me off. But yeah, I'm glad I read it, so I can say that I read Frankenstein. But yeah, it was a strange reading experience. Then I read something I can actually show you. I read The Doors of Eden by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This I read for the Buzzword Reading Challenge. The reading challenge for prompt for March was location, so Eden, right? So in this book we follow several characters. First we start with Lee and Mal, and they're walking around looking for monsters after college in some like place in England. And I think it was Lee or Mal. Anyway, one of them disappears and then reappears several years later, along with some different and interesting creatures, because this whole book is about parallel Earths and how life would evolve in these Earths with some differences, right? So you have a world filled with Birdman. So you have a world where, you know, what happened if dinosaurs were alive, or, you know, different beings and organisms creating their own civilizations and cultures and so on. Because throughout the book we have sort of a little bits of like a fictional book of parallel Earths, and basically we find out that there is a way to travel from one Earth to another, and something has happened that basically puts every Earth in danger, and our group of characters has to go and try to fix this problem. Now, I enjoyed the first half of this book because it felt like it was a sci-fi thriller, and our characters just kept running around. There was like the good guys, the bad guys, trying to figure out what was happening. But then the last part of the book just went over my head, because when they went to fix the problem, that was when they lost me. Because at one point in the third act, there is a time loop of one event happening over and over and over again, with characters making a tiny different decision, and then by the end of it, stuff happens. And it was my first Tchaikovsky book, and I picked this one when I bought this one because, first of all, it's a standalone, so that's good. But yeah, it was strange. I am interested to read more from the author. I do have his fantasy, some of his fantasy books, and I do at one point want to read Children of Time, even though I hate spiders. But this one was, it was okay. The beginning was okay. The last part just kind of, I couldn't explain to you what happened. But yeah, I read it. The next book I read is I Think I Might Love You by Christina C. Jones. This was a book for Aurelium. What to say about this book? I didn't really fall for the characters, our main love interest. So basically in this book we follow, I forgot their names. I'm sorry. So basically we follow two characters. One of them is sort of chaotic, and she basically is very impulsive and doesn't think about the consequences of her actions, which turned out to be kind of grave. And so she has to work a bunch of community hours. What do you call that? When you get arrested, and instead of going to jail, you do a lot of community service, right? Hours. So basically she has to do a bunch of those in this veterinary clinic, where she meets the dude she the previous day attacked, because he is living in her sister's apartment, but she didn't know that. So when she went to her sister's apartment, she thought she was being attacked, so she hit him and whatever. Basically, I did not really get the chemistry between them, and I did not enjoy the humor. I did not think anything of that was funny, and that just kind of ruined the whole book for me. The writing style is specific. It takes a little bit to get used to it, but just the whole, I did not think it was funny. I did not think those two had any chemistry, and that, I really didn't enjoy the book that much. Next, I read Saint's Blood by Sebastian de Castell. This is book 3, right? Book 3 in the Greatcoats series. This is part of a project that Christina and I are doing. We are reading the Greatcoats series, one book a month. And in this book 3, we follow Falkio and his friends as they're dealing with another horrible situation. Basically, someone in this world, people who are very good at one specific thing become saints. So it means they have some power. So, for example, oh my God, was it Kest or Brasti? I think it was Brasti or Kest. Anyway, one of them was at one point the Saint of Swords, which means he was the best swordsman around at the time. And he had powers. He could be very, very good at what he does and whatnot. So in this world, in this book, some people decided to start killing all the saints so that they could take their blood and become powerful on their own. Yeah, it was kind of creepy, and it was there were some gory parts here, but I enjoyed this one way more than the second one, because it felt smaller in a way that in the second one there were so many plots and so many things happening that you couldn't really sit and feel the impact of the actions. Because in this one we see the consequences of all the various plots and stuff that happened in the second one. We see Falkio dealing with his brush with death, and how he basically has PTSD, and he has so much trauma that he's not dealing with, and his friends finally make him deal with the fact that's happening, what's happened to him, and that he has to deal with it. we see the return of the tailor, which I hated, and because it kind of felt like there weren't any sort of serious consequences for her actions from the previous book. And yeah, but I enjoyed this one really a lot. Christina and I will be doing a review for this one, so look forward to that. The next book I read is Rule of Wolves by Lee Bardugo. This I read for the Draconathon. And basically in this one, this is book 2 in it's not the Nikolai trilogy, duology, it's the King of Scars duology. But basically these are Nikolai books about Nikolai, who we meet in the second Grishaverse book. So Nina and Zoya are working together, Nina in a separate place from them, to try to prevent the war with Fjerda, which of course they fail. There is a war with Fjerda, and stuff happens. I can't tell you because it's the second book in this duology. It's the, I think, 7th book in the whole universe, and to say something would be really spoilery, but I can tell you that it was very easy to get back into the world, because when I started reading it, I really don't remember much from King of Scars, but it was easy to get back into it, to follow along with the characters. There is a dragon. I was a bit skeptical, but there is a dragon in this one, and everything sort of ends quite well, and you can totally tell that it was the ending of a whole universe, because we had so many cameos of from characters from other books, like from the first trilogy, then from Six of Crows people, and it was really good. I had such fun listening to the audio and reading this book. So yeah, I heard that the author is going to write another book for the people from the Six of Crows duology. So I'm looking forward to that. But that's going to happen it's not going to happen soon. So the next thing I read was I keep forgetting, Hexed by Kevin Hearn. This is book 2 in the Iron Druid series, in which we follow Atticus, who is a Celtic druid who lives in Arizona. And in this one, this is an urban fantasy book. So it was a quick read, it was fun, it was entertaining. So in this one, he is dealing with, again, with witches, but those Bacchanalia witches, is that how you say it? You know, those people who basically start a humongous party and it turns into an orgy and makes people's lives miserable? That one. So basically, they have come to his to his town, and he's helping the local witches take care of these witches. And finally, in this one, they set up the story with Thor, because in the first one and in the second one, we kept hearing about how Thor is such an asshole, and throughout the different deals that he had to make so he can deal with this current problem, he has Atticus has promised himself that he will soon deal with Thor. So I think that's happening in the third one, that he and his vampire lawyer will be dealing with Thor in the third one, and I'm so much looking forward to that. Yeah, these books are short, fun, entertaining. The one problem I had in this one is that Atticus, being so old, he has picked up ways of dealing with people and so on. So in this one, he has some interaction with a coyote. Basically, it's a Native American trickster god, and the trickster god speaks in a very specific Southern American accent, right? So Atticus has this logic that for people to like you better and to be more receptive to you, you're supposed to speak the way he does. So he basically changed the way he spoke just when he spoke with the character, and since it's Southern American, it kind of felt like he was talking down to him, and maybe that was my wrong impression, but that was what it felt like to me. And that was the kind of when I was listening to that, I was like, what the hell is this? So that kind of lessened my enjoyment of the book, but the other stuff, it was really, really fun. Next, I read The Wolf of Oregnato by K.S. Villoso. So this I read for Draconathon as well. There is a dragon in this one, quite soon actually. So basically, in this one, we follow Queen Talien. She basically is the bitch queen of Oregnato, and she's part of this wolf clan. They don't shapeshift or anything. Basically, they're called the wolves because they're ruthless and whatnot. So basically, the book starts with her and her future husband standing in this room with the dead body, and it was the day before their marriage. No, her husband. It was the day before their coronation. Now, so he is from a enemy clan, so forth. So basically, there was a war between their two clans. There was a truce, and the deal of this truce was that the two of them were supposed to get married. They get married and they get crowned to rule together throughout the land, right? So basically in the first chapter, the husband leaves. We have no idea why, and leaves our queen and her son in this kingdom, and for the next 5 years she has to rule alone. And she is doing that the best way she can with, she has a bunch of warlords that she has to like deal with, and they're giving her shit for stuff and whatnot. So 5 years later, down the line, she gets a letter from her husband, come meet me in this town, let's talk about stuff and maybe, get back together. So she does that and gets betrayed, and then stuff happens, whatnot. The thing with this book, it was an okay fantasy book. It is very much character driven, which is not something I'm a big fan of. And also, it is basically the main conflict of the book is based on miscommunication, which is I hate that trope. I really do. And basically, if the two of them, the queen and her husband, could have just sat down and had an actual conversation, the entire book wouldn't have happened. Throughout the book, we do see, there are flashback scenes, so we do see the development of their relationship, and we see that there were problems that the queen chose to ignore or didn't know how to address. And throughout the book, she has it seems like she has two personas. She has the persona that she portrays out front to other people, being this badass, strong woman, and from the inside being filled with insecurities and doubts and so on. And it just that part was interesting to read. But just to have this whole book, when you figure out at the end the reason why the husband left, and the hypocrisy of that reason, and the fact that they could have just sat down and had a conversation and none of that would have happened, which just kind of irks me. And I kept thinking about this book, and it says I'm so annoyed by everyone. And I was like, well, I was going to continue on with the series quite soon, but I'm going to give it time so I can just calm down, because every time I think about the book and think about the characters, I'm like, oh my god, they're so annoying. So yeah, it was an okay fantasy book. It has a dragon, so it fit the Draconathon thingy. But yeah, I will leave it for later to continue on with the series. The next book I read is Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. This is the Croatian translation of this story. Basically, in this one, this is science fiction with a lot of it's like literary fiction with sci-fi elements, I think. So basically, this is a story that takes place in the not post-apocalyptic world, but basically yes. So a flu basically decimated the entirety of the world's population, and we follow a group of actors who go around the Great Lakes of America and perform Shakespeare or concerts for the people who live there, so the traveling symphony. And in this symphony, there is Kristen. We meet Kristen at the beginning of the book, as she is a very, very young actress in a play with an actor named Arthur, whose life we also learn about throughout this book, because Arthur is the glue that basically, not the glue, maybe a connection that connects all the characters that we follow in this book. And we also follow Jivan, who tried to save Arthur before he died. So the book starts with Arthur performing King Lear, and he basically dies on stage from heart attack. Jivan is he's a paparazzi, but actually turned medic, so he tries to help him. Kirsten is friends with Arthur, and basically we learn about Arthur's life and his first wife. I want to say Meredith, but probably not. We follow his first wife, Miranda, and Miranda is an artist, and she wrote this comic book about Station 11, which is a station in space with a Dr. 11, I think, and the captain whose name escapes me now. And basically they're looking down at a ruined Earth and they're trying to survive, and which is sort of a metaphor for what's happening in the real world. And so we have Kirsten, we have Jivan, we have Arthur, and we have the Prophet. The Prophet is a dude who has it's, what do you call those cults? Doomsday cults, right? So basically he wants to destroy this traveling symphony of actors, and he has a very interesting way of going about it. So yeah, I read this book. I found the writing was beautiful and it was fun to read. After that, reading the book, I watched the TV show, which you can find on HBO if you have HBO. And the TV show deals with the prophet very differently and tones down his prophetness and his not the craziness, but you know how when you read like post-apocalyptic books and there are prophets and they get like on all doomsday and very preachy and whatnot. They toned it down in the TV show. Here it's more brutal and ruthless, and Kirsten herself is also a bit more ruthless. I would say that there's more humor in the TV show, but yeah. Anyway, I really did enjoy this book. I read it for, I think it was for my for Aurelium, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, not a lot of sci-fi elements other than the flu, and we have that station in space, but really it's like part of a comic book of another story that's not part of this world. But yeah, it was an interesting read. Next, I read Dark Waters by Catherine Arden. This is book 3 in Small Spaces series. This is a middle grade. I read this for Aurelium, I think. Yeah. Basically, in since this is book 3, in book 1, Coco, Ollie, and Brian meet someone called the Smiling Man. He is very creepy and very scary, and he basically wants to kill them all. In this one, they go on a boat trip. Very ill-advised. And something from the water, a monster, which gave me like Mira Grant vibes immediately, basically goes at them. And that's all I can say because it's book 3 and I don't want to spoil stuff for you. There's one book left in the series that's coming out, I think, this year. So, this book, I always get surprised when I read, because apparently I pick scary middle grades and that are creepy and just give me heart palpitations. Yeah, this was creepy and scary, and I enjoyed it a lot. I'm looking forward to the finale to see how everything resolves itself. Next, I read a non-fiction book called The Geek Feminist Revolution by Cameron Hurley. This was for my Reddit Fantasy Bingo Challenge. We were supposed to read SFF non-fiction related work. And this is a collection of essays by the author in which she deals with various topics connected to fandom and geekdom and her own personal life. She talks about wanting to be a writer and how that went about. She talks about the various scandals connected to the geekdom, like the, what was it, sad puppy, angry puppy thing that happened with Hugo's, the, oh my god, game, something, it will come to me in a couple of seconds, that happened with people doxing female players, video game players, and just people being shits on the internet. It was I read it on, listened to it on audio. The audiobook narrator really did a great job because she conveyed the passion behind these essays, the power. They were powerful, and it was a really, really, I think it was the first like essay collection book that I really, really enjoyed. I mean, it was obviously close to my own personal interests, and that helped. But it was really, really something, and I would definitely recommend it to people. I'm going to recommend this to Christina to read because it was really fascinating and really paints a picture of the place women have in this fandom. But it's not very desperate or depressing, and it has. It's hopeful and it's inspiring as well, and I really, really enjoyed reading this collection. Then it was like the last week of the month, and I just realized that I haven't read anything with romance in it, and I was also feeling kind of slumpy and did not really feel inspired to read all the books that I had to read till the end of the month. So I decided to start reading Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. This was I don't remember, this is my second or third reread of this book. Yeah, I enjoyed that audiobook so much because the narrator gives Red a northern England accent, and I love it, and it's so good because so basically in this book we follow Chloe Brown, who has a near-death experience and decides to start to get a life. So she makes a list of things that she wants to do, and she enlists the help of her building superintendent or whatever, handyman guy, Redford, to help her achieve one of these things. So she wants to like do something reckless, ride a bike, go on a trip, and like go outside, go clubbing and whatnot. And he helps her with that. And basically their relationship starts antagonistic, but then there is tension, there is attraction, they're just great. The audiobook's amazing, 5 stars all the way. I just giggled the entire time, and I just really enjoyed it, and I had so much fun. It just basically made me want to read more stuff, and it was so good. I just loved the book. Next, I read Skin in the Game. I read this short story from Tor.com. I will leave the link to it down below so you can check it out yourself. To fill a prompt for the Reddit Fantasy Bingo Challenge, we were supposed to read a book by a Latin or Latinx author. Now, this is a cheat because you're supposed to read a novel-length story, but since I'm not going to submit my bingo card to get like if you submit your bingo card to Reddit, you can get like a sign next to your name, and you can like be entered into to get some awards, but I'm not going to do that. So this is a bit of a cheat. So this is Skin in the Game is a short story in which we follow Jimena, who is an officer in the zombie city, a city where there are zombies. So there are 3 types of people who live in the city. So there are the zombies, the ghosts, and people who are alive, right? So Jimena basically works in a neighborhood there to patrol for monsters, and basically this is a 30-page story, and I just had a discussion with my sister who reads a lot of short stories. I need more. I mean, it's a short story that has a beginning and an end, and I can't really tell you much because 30 pages, it's very spoilery, so you can read it for yourself and judge. But what I lacked was details, and what I lacked was more details, just basically details. Because everything happened so quickly and in one sentence, and like suddenly her partner's a vampire, apparently there are vampires there again, then there's her father appears, and then, everything is sort of short, and it just, I needed more. And if the author has written, I haven't checked if she has written like a lengthier work in that world, that would be so interesting to read, because the world itself sounds interesting, but yeah, I just needed more. I'm participating in the first slow read along, and I've read book 2 finally. I'm like 2 months behind, but it's fine. Basically, I read Before They Are Hanged by Joe Abercrombie. So in this book, we follow our 3 characters or more from the first one. So we follow Luther, we follow Glokta, and we follow Logan and Nine Fingers as they go with each their own adventure, right? So Luther and Logan and a bunch of other people are on a journey to find this seed from the demon world to help them do stuff. And during their journey, they get into a lot of trouble. And their characters, I just love how the characters in these books have, I call them their likability spikes. So they have big character arcs, and for everyone is so flawed, it's very difficult to sort of root for someone, but you get attached to certain characters because they go through so much shit, so it's you get attached to them. But then they, like, you feel bad for one character for something, and then they basically do or say something so horrible, and you're like, oh, come on, dude. Like, you like them, it's so great, and then they do something, oh no, you suck. And it is a fun read. So that was Logan and Luther. Then Glodka is in charge of a city, and he has to figure out who killed his predecessor in the city, and he has to figure out how to save the city from the enemy that is surrounding them, and it's about to attack them. And he does so, doing some shady stuff. But he's shady himself because he's a torturer, and there is a torture scene in this one that is just so fucking insane. And I don't know why I'm smiling through it, but I was listening to it, and I was like, what the hell was happening there? It was so gory, and it was so gross, but yeah. Then I also like in this one, when Glodka was in charge of the city, he showed his more sarcastic side because he was the top dog there, and he didn't have a boss above him in the city that he had to be careful at what he was doing and what he said, even though there was a person there who was basically spying on him for his boss back in his hometown, right? But here he could let his sarcastic side like out, and he was so awful with the I guess ruling people in that town, and it was so great. It was such fun to read. Then we follow Major West, who is basically, since the war with the Northerners is happening, he is sent to basically babysit the prince who wants to, like, you know, earn his stripes in the war, and he's basically useless. And there is a scene with the prince after there was a huge battle. Everyone died, of course, because the prince is just shit. And so the prince, a couple of Northmen that we met in the first book, and two convicts that worked as smithies there. Basically, they're on their own journey to survive. And throughout the story, just basically, Ladislav, the prince, just sucks. He sucks so much. He's horrible, and he does something to which West, who basically spends the entire time trying to protect him because because it's his duty and he feels obliged to do it. At one point, he reaches a breaking point and he does something. And I was listening to that part in the car. People who read the books know what I'm talking about. I listened to that part in the car, and I was listening to it, and I was clapping and I was commenting, and it was so crazy and it was so good. I was so happy when that happened. It was so great. Yeah, but then he has his problems with, he views women, Captain West views women with a very Madonna whore view, and, you know, of course, then he did something and just went, anyway. Yeah, so many characters, so much stuff, and I'm so interested in what happens in the third one. It's going to be so fun, and yeah, I'm really enjoying. I was kind of iffy after I read the first one, and I was like, okay, let's read the second one, and the second one was better than the first one, and that is rare. So yeah, I'm enjoying the series. I'm looking forward to the third one. And that was everything I read this month. It was a lot, and I talked a lot. It's going to be interesting trying to edit this. But yeah, so these are the books I read. These are the readathons that I participated. I finished, for the first time ever, I finished my Reddit Fantasy Bingo Challenge with a little bit of a cheat, but I'm saying it's okay because the previous three, I didn't even come close to finishing it, so this was really fun. Yeah, so if you have participated in any of the readathons, if you have read any of the books that I have mentioned, please do comment down below. Yeah, if you've liked this video, you can press the like button. You can also press the subscribe button to subscribe to our channel. Look forward to Christina's wrap up, which is happening soon. And yeah, check out the links in the description box. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!